All right, folks, good evening. My name is Ben Bird. I'm with the St. Joseph School District Foundation Board. I'm pleased to welcome you to the 2023-2024 Tribute to Teachers and Staff. Ask everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. That will be led by Denise Peters, our reigning Teacher of the Year from Skaith Elementary School.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everybody. The foundation is pleased to host this special event honoring our St. Joseph School District staff. We thank all of our generous supporters. When you get a second, if you could look through the program and look at our dinner sponsors, those organizations and individuals have been generous for many years. So, of course, we thank them for their ongoing support. Without their help, we wouldn't be able to put this event together. We want to recognize our special guests that are here tonight. The Board of Education, including David Foster, Kenneth Reeder, Kim Miller, Latanya Williams, Isara Garcia, Whitney Lanning, and Rick Gehring. Our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Gabe Edgar, is here. Ask him to please stand to be recognized. He's also a member of our foundation board. Other foundation board members include, some of which are in here, include Colin Pettigrew, our Teacher of the Year a couple years ago, Dr. Melissa Mace of Missouri Western, Todd Meyerhofer, David Richmond, Natalie Redmond, Rod Sampson, Christy Arthur, Bobby Kronk, Chad Carlson, Lisa Rost, Ron Auxier, Greg Roberts, Denise Peters, our reigning Teacher of the Year. Honored also to have with us this evening some folks from Missouri Western, including Dr. Elizabeth Kennedy, the President of the University, Dr. Adrienne Johnson, Chair of the Education Department, Dr. Mike Ducey, Vice Provost and Director of the Griffin Office of Applied Learning, and Becky Dunn, Chief Communications Officer. Also are pleased to report Mayor John Josendale is here this evening to join us, Deputy Mayor Randy Schultz, and then Councilman Madison Davis and Jeff Schonberg. Mosaic also has representatives here tonight, Jill Courtney and Devin Brewer. Thank all those folks for joining us tonight and their support in the various forms and shapes that takes. Finally, and most importantly, I want to welcome the reason why we're here, all the school district staff, all that they do in our community for our kids. So let's have fun tonight. Thank you for taking time to join us. Here we go. The invocation will be given by Pastor Doug Walters of Ashland Methodist. Excuse me.
It's a pleasure to be here tonight and to be able to share with you. Please know, as I share the invocation, we pray for this school system all the time, for the teachers, for the students, for the board. It's an era unlike any I've ever experienced. As an educator, I can only imagine. I never thought that we'd have to pray for the safety in our school system, but we do that, and we're thankful for all of you, for all that you do. And I would invite you, if you would, to pray with me. Loving God, all wisdom and knowledge comes from you. Bless all teachers so that we may guide students, that they too may be guided by your grace. Let us always see your face, Jesus, in the faces of those they teach. Help them understand that we instruct others much more by who we are than by what we say. Strengthen us with enthusiasm for our ministry. Hold us up on the days that we need encouragement and sustenance. Give us patience when managing classrooms and perseverance when grading papers. May we have the support of administrators and parents as we collaborate in the formation of young people. We also pray for adequate resources that allow us to do our jobs well. And most important, God, let your love be the guiding principle that informs and upholds all of our teachers and students. We pray these things in the name of Jesus, our Savior. Amen.
Thank you for that. I'd now like to introduce tonight's speaker. Greg Hatton is a product of the St. Joseph School District. Born and raised in St. Joseph, he earned a master's in business before a long career in sales and marketing with Hallmark Cards in Kansas City. As vice president of sales, Greg set a number of performance records and assembled a great team of sales professionals in the western half of the United States. He left Hallmark to become senior vice president and chief marketing officer for an outdoor retailer in the Pacific Northwest. There, in his spare time, he took up fly fishing and boat building, which led to a number of river adventures all over the Pacific Northwest. He started his own consulting firm over 15 years ago, specializing in consumer products and creative problem solving, and worked with clients all over the world. In the outdoor space, Greg is an influencer and has published and written feature articles on the wild and scenic rivers he runs in his wooden boats out west. In one of his most celebrated adventures, he built a replica of the first wooden dory to run the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon, and then replicated that trip with a team of 16 river runners from all over the world. He currently lives on Lover's Lane here in St. Joseph, with Janet, his wife of 45 years, and enjoys this season of life with his 3 children and 7 grandchildren. Please welcome our tribute speaker, Greg Hatton.
Hello. I'm usually up here talking about wood boats and river adventures, so if I drift in that direction, somebody just throw something at me if you would. I was asked to speak a little bit about my experience in the St. Joe School District because I am a product of the St. Joe School District. So this is kind of a common man's observations of what I experienced. And I thought I'd start off with a little bit of trivia. Do you know when the St. Joseph School District was founded? Anyone? How about 1860? That was a year before the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln was elected that year. And school children completed their studies by kerosene lamp. Electricity was still 20 years off. That kind of puts it in perspective that we've been around a long time as a school district. In 1860, the Oregon Trail was at its peak and St. Joseph was booming. We were the #1 launching pad for the Oregon Trail for pioneers headed west. We launched more wagon trains from St. Joe than any river town or trading post on the Missouri River. And so if you can imagine, in 1860, things were happening in this town. So you're part of an incredible educational legacy, and so am I. I grew up here, I was born here, and I'm a product of the St. Joe School District, and I couldn't be more proud. So the last few weeks, after I was asked to speak, I thought about my experience growing up in this school district and what I learned, and reflected on some of the teachers that I had, experiences that I had, and it was kind of fun retracing, and I came to a revelation for me as I thought about all the teachers and all the grades, and it was how some of the littlest things they did for me made the biggest impact. Just little tiny things that you would think are daily occurrences, I remembered 50 years, 60 years later. So I thought I would talk to you about some of my experiences, and I want to start off at Noyes School. Anybody from Noyes? Teach there, went there? Well, Mrs. Corkin was my kindergarten teacher, and she was incredible. In 1963, Mrs. Corkin taught her 5-year-olds another language. She was teaching Spanish, which I can't imagine. She was way ahead of her time. We call that dual immersion now, right? On my report card from kindergarten, I know there was a note that said, he's very social, which, as we all know as educators, a little bit talkative. So since I was talkative, I didn't retain a whole lot of that Spanish. But I did retain 2 things. I came away from there as a kindergartner. I could count to 10 in Spanish, and I could ask my mom for chocolate leche, which is chocolate milk. Kind of an accomplishment there. So what I learned from Mrs. Corkin was that the world is a big, big place filled with colorful people, foreign countries, and different languages. And I loved her for that. In the second grade at Edison, I moved around a bit. I had Mrs. Robertson for my teacher. Anybody from Edison? Teach there, go there, went there? Well, Mrs. Robertson announced on the first day of school that she had an award for the Quiet Mouse of the Year. So if you were really quiet all year long, challenge for me, considering my short history in the classroom, but if you were quiet and you behaved yourself all year long, you could win Quiet Mouse of the Year. So I was as quiet as I could be. And at the end of the year, she announced the winner of the Quiet Mouse of the Year was Terry Harper for the girls, and I won it for the boys. Now here's this little thing, one of the little things. It came with a trophy. This is a little porcelain mouse mounted on styrofoam, and my mother keeps this on a shelf on a bookcase. That's my trophy case. But she kept that, and I think the reason she kept that was because she knew that at the time that meant the world to me. But that's one of those little things that Mrs. Robertson probably just kind of had a spare porcelain mouse and a piece of styrofoam as a way to keep kids quiet, and it worked. So this is going back to my mom after this is over. I borrowed it for the evening. But in the fourth grade, I moved to a school that was brand new called Hawthorne. Anyone know it as Coleman, maybe? Okay, I was one of the first students when that opened. Hawthorne was brand new, and they opened that school 2 blocks from my house on Linda Lane, which was great because I was being bussed all over the city to that point. In the fourth grade, my teacher was Mrs. Laura Bowen. Anyone? Laura Bowen? A saint, one of the nicest women I have ever met. We started every morning with a Pledge of Allegiance and a prayer. And she was incredible. And what I learned from her was that the golden rule extended beyond Sunday school. And I loved her for that. In the 7th grade, I went to Eugene Field, which was our equivalent of middle school at that time. I really didn't get kicked out of all these schools. I went to all those different schools, and we never moved. We were on Linda Lane. So in Eugene Field, my homeroom teacher was Mrs. Bartlett. Anyone? Mrs. Bartlett? Eugene Field? She was my homeroom teacher, and the first week of class, I turned in a paper, and I had a misspelled word on it. I spelled a lot as one word, A-L-O-T. Well, I got my paper back, circled in red was a lot, and come see me. So I did. And over lunch, she had me write 100 times the correct spelling of a lot, which is 2 words, A-L-O-T. So I filled up a notebook paper, front and back, with that word 100 times. And I never misspelled that word again. And I would say I loved her for it. I didn't at the time, but what I learned from Mrs. Bartlett was the English language. I learned how to speak it, and I learned how to write it. And I loved her for that. At Central High School, I learned so much from so many. And not just the teachers. I learned creative writing from Miss Nelson. I learned creative storytelling with a Super 8 camera from Mark Stein. I learned about diversity from Ham Henderson. Any of those names ringing a bell a little bit, I hope? Shake your head. Our principal was Mr. Baker, and he had the patience of a saint because we had some senior pranks that I won't talk about. Miss Birdie was our senior counselor, and I learned about the world beyond high school from her, and it was a great experience. But the teacher who made the biggest impact on my life, and I hope you know this name, was Colleen Tom. Anyone? I think, is the stage name for her now, or the... It is? It's great, because it should be. I learned a lot from Colleen Tom. Her mission in life was bringing Broadway to the central stage. If you knew her, you know what I'm talking about. She had a mission in mind, and she had a passion for doing that. And she had a way of making us believe that we could do it. And not just the performances. It was the costumes and the sets and the orchestra and the promotion and the tickets, the whole thing. She wanted a Broadway production on that central stage. And it was incredible. So I knew her, and I did a little bit of acting. And when she announced in my senior year that the play for the year would be The King and I was pretty excited. Although she also, with that announcement, said, all the males who try out for The King of Siam must be prepared to shave their head. No problem. So 30 of us competed for the lead, and I got the lead in the play. And I slept on that, and the next day it kind of hit me. You know, I'm not sure I really want to shave my head. I wonder if there's another option. You know where this is going. So I go to Colleen Tom's room over lunch the very next day after the announcement. And there she sat at her big oak desk in a big empty classroom. And she was reading the Broadway reviews, I'm sure. And if you knew her, you knew she had a signature pair of reading glasses that were half glasses. They were always cocked about halfway down her nose. They were silver frames with a silver chain behind her neck. And I interrupted her lunch hour and her reading and cleared my throat, stood at her desk, and said, mumbled something about, you know, talk to my mom. I got senior pictures coming up. Senior prom is going to be this spring. I got graduation. All my family's going to be here. I think it would be better if I left the hair on my head and maybe did this role with a rubber bald cap. And she looked at me, and I felt about this big. She looked down over her glasses, down her nose, and she said, and I will never forget this, not in my production. She made that pretty clear. And and she went on to say, if your hair means more to you than this role, I've got 30 young men who would go down to Chet's barber shop after school, shave their head for this part. So you have till the end of the day to decide whether you want to keep your hair or whether you want the lead in this play. Okay, I don't know what I said. I probably started crying, actually. But I wanted the role, and I probably went down to Chet's before school was even out and had my hair removed. I shaved my head for her, and it was a small price to pay. Because what I learned from that experience was how not to negotiate, I will tell you that. And I've reflected on that several times. But what I learned from her was so much. She was so disciplined and so committed to professionalism that really stuck with me forever. And she was so big on the little things, the big things, but getting everything right. And I practiced till I was sick of it, and then practiced some more. And she just had a way of setting a very high standard, and I will never forget her for that. So I'm glad the stage is named after her. That's fitting. The most important thing I want to tell you is, in all the experiences I had in the St. Joe's School District, the most important thing that I learned from all my teachers was to be curious, to have the courage and the curiosity to ask questions, to try new things, to seek new experiences. What that did for me was it created the confidence to be a lifelong learner, if that makes sense. And that was consistent. All my teachers gave me the confidence to ask the questions, to try new things, solve a problem, be creative, think outside the box. Consistent among all the teachers and all the grades and all the schools I had. Greatest gift I got. So when I got my high school diploma and graduated from college with an MBA, I knocked on really only one door. Hallmark Cards was the only place I wanted to work. Anybody? Hallmark, been there, heard of it, I hope? I found an open door down there, and I told them, I will sweep floors, I'll park cars, I'll wash windows. I just want a job. And so they gave me a briefcase full of greeting cards and a snow shovel and sent me to Green Bay, Wisconsin. There was a lot of incentive to work hard. I was at the very bottom of the sales rung, and I worked hard and moved up quickly, became a vice president of sales, younger than I should have. And when I became a vice president of sales, there was a formula at Hallmark. And the formula went something like this. You make senior leadership at Hallmark, and you're expected to buy a house in Johnson County on a cul-de-sac with at least 2 other Hallmarkers. You send your kids to Blue Valley, north, south, east, west. They graduate, and they go to Lawrence, Kansas with their buddies and become Jayhawkers. That's the formula, right? Anybody that knows? Janet and I did something a little bit different. Not that we have anything against Jayhawks, but we actually moved to St. Joe, right next to John Josendale, by the way. He can attest. We moved to St. Joe so our kids could go to school here, where we went to school. We wanted them taught by teachers that shared our values and could instill in them the courage to be curious. I had to be the only one commuting on I-29 from St. Joe to Crown Center every day. But it was great. It worked out great for us. And none of our 3 kids went to KU. Thank you. All 3 of our kids graduated from a university. All 3 went on to earn their master's degrees, and all 3 are lifelong learners. And I have all you to thank for that. Yes. Thank you. My curiosity, as you heard, led me west to explore the world of wooden boats and wild and scenic rivers. I've seen things you can only see if you're curious enough to get on a boat. Crazy enough to get on a boat. You have to run a few rapids, you have to camp by the river, you have to cook on an open fire, but you see things that no one else can see. And it's the curiosity that led me there. I've written a number of articles about those wild and scenic places using the tools that I learned from Miss Nelson, Mrs. Bartlett, and Mark Stein. Now, I did a little creative writing just for you. And if you could roll that, I'm much better with video. You got to have something to look at. I did a little creative writing project, and I need to give you a context for this, okay? Anybody heard of Paul Harvey? Am I dating myself? Paul Harvey, a little bit, a lot. Paul Harvey was a nationally syndicated radio personality who had a trustworthy Midwestern voice and a folksy radio program called The Rest of the Story. In the 60s through the 80s, this guy was probably the most listened to broadcaster in the Midwest besides Walter Cronkite. At the Future Farmers of America National Convention in 1978, Paul Harvey gave a keynote speech where he celebrated the American farmer in a piece titled, "So God Made a Farmer." I adapted that work because I like it so much. And as a tribute to the teachers, I'd like to read it to you. And I wish I had Paul Harvey's voice because it doesn't quite sound the same when I say it, but here we go. And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, "I need someone to nurture this." So God made a teacher. God said, "I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, get their own children dressed and out the door before spending the day molding other people's children, then go home, get dinner on the table, attend an evening school event, and then come home again to tuck their own in." So God made a teacher. I need somebody with a strong back and strong arms to carry backpacks and wrangle kids at recess, and then carry their own children to the store to get groceries. Somebody to call roll, count heads, monitor lunchrooms, do bus duty, come home hungry and tired with papers to grade and parents to call before the day is done. So God made a teacher. God said, I need somebody willing to spend their own time, their own resources to decorate their classrooms, create a warm and safe place to learn. I need somebody with patience that will spend time with engaged students and then spend even more time with disengaged students to make sure every child has the best chance for a quality education, and who, after pouring into students all day long, can come home and read the paper and read the news and hear about declining test scores, public school budget cuts, and tragic school shootings around the country, and still have the passion and the energy to get up the next day, go to their school, and do it all again. God had to have somebody that considered teaching a calling, not a job. Somebody that could rise above distractions beyond their control, like a global pandemic, masks in the classroom, vaccinations, and scrubbing down tables and desks and doorknobs of their homeroom every day. Someone that had common sense values and moral courage to deal with controversial issues of the day while demonstrating poise and empathy in front of their students and parents. So God made a teacher. I need somebody that can make a difference in young lives with the little things and with the big things. Somebody that can create lifelong learners by encouraging students to try new things, think new thoughts, be problem solvers, and creative thinkers. Somebody that can give young people the courage to be curious. God needed someone tough enough to deal with strong-willed students and strong-willed parents, yet gentle enough to bandage a knee, hold a hand, dry a tear, or heal a heart. So God made a teacher. And that's why we love you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg. That was fantastic. Part of our portion of the evening tonight is to recognize our retiring teachers. So we're here to pay tribute to the staff of the St. Joseph School District who are moving on. We truly appreciate their dedication in educating our children and the support they've provided for many years. I'd now like to call to the podium Dr. Ashley McGinnis and Dr. Laura Gilpin to recognize our retirees and present some pin awards.
Good evening. I'm honored to be here tonight to recognize some outstanding educators who have served many years in our district. First up, we are going to recognize 5 individual teachers who have served 30 years in our district, which I just think is super impressive. Our first pin recipient for 30 years is Janet Corwin. If you could come on up. Janet. Lara Gilpin. Jay Oswald. Letitia Thomas. And Becky Wallner. This next individual has 35 years with our district. Deborah Penzino. Next, we are going to celebrate our retirees. So when I call your name, if you could come up on the stage, and then you will stay up on the stage for a photo at the end. I'm going to read all of these back to back, so if we can just hold our applause until the end. Terry Best, Debbie Bryson, Catherine Chapman, Selena Chappell, Carrie Clinton, Sally Despain, Patsy Fisher, Karen Franklin, Tammy Gerber, Susan Gower, Brett Hall, Shane Michael Hurd, Julia Heckman, Scott Horton, Sherry Huber, Cheryl Huffman, Carla Johnson, Judith Long, Jerry Maple, Nona Miller, Robert Nash, Deborah Neal, Robin Ogdahl, Jennifer Patterson, Leanne Pogue, Deborah Pulley, Deborah Roberts, Jennifer Schroberl, Jason Simpson, Tammy Soyle, Susan Stiles, Sandra Urshary, Tracy Verdusco, James Young, Elizabeth Zond, and Rebecca Zuptik. Congratulations to all.
Congratulations to all those retirees. We appreciate all your many years of service. Congratulations as well for some of those milestones. I have a quick scholarship to announce before I hand it over to some other folks who will come to the podium. The Sarah Lee Herman Ochtman Scholarship Award in Science and Mathematics was established in memory of Sarah Lee by her family in January of 2003. Sarah Lee Ochtman was a graduate of Central High School, class of 1950, and a graduate of the University of Missouri in 1954, where she received a Bachelor of Arts in Education. She was a member of the Mortar Board, Pi Lambda Theta, Sigma Epsilon Sigma, Kappa Epsilon Alpha, and Who's Who in American Colleges and Universities in 1954. This year's recipient is Jake Phillips. Jake teaches environmental science at Central High School and plans on attending Montana State University to pursue a Master's of Science degree in science education. Congratulations, Jake. At this time, I would like to welcome Dr. Lacey Adams to the podium. She's going to present the Ruby Kate Wells Memorial Scholarship.
Good evening. The Scott and Tara Wells family recently selected the 2023 recipients of the Ruby Kate Wells Memorial Field Trip Grant. This grant was established in 2006 with the intent to provide field trip opportunities to St. Joseph School District Title students. 4 teachers submitted grant applications, and all 4 were awarded a combined amount of $3,800. The following educators were selected. Please come forward. Megan Cobb, Lindbergh, Kim Dilly, Edison, Tara Thompson, Carden Park, and Connor Kirshner, Carden Park. Cobb. Ms. Cobb has taught for 18 years and will be taking 90 first grade students to the Kansas City Zoo. Kim Dilly has taught 31 years, and will be taking 41 second grade students to Science City. Tara Thompson has taught 2 years and will be taking 100 third graders to Shadow Milk Farms. Connor Kirshner has taught 2 years and will take 72 fifth graders to Science City. Additionally, during the 21-22 school year, during COVID, the Wells family provided Lafayette High School $3,000 for their June 2023 trip to Disney World. Congratulations.
Next, I'd like to call Bobby Cronk and Rod Sampson to the podium. They're going to present some awards that are sponsored by American Family. American Family's been a really generous corporate sponsor and benefactor through the School District Foundation for many, many years. This year, they've given $20,000. For the last maybe almost 10 years, they've given anywhere from $10,000 to $40,000 to the foundation, and that money has been used to supplement what we call our Appleseed grants. Rod, Chad Carlson, other agents in town have been real instrumental in securing those funds, and if you're not aware of the generosity of that business, it stacks up as well as anybody, as well as any entity or organization here in town. So they're going to talk more about that, but always want to thank American Family for their generosity because it does make a big difference in our classrooms.
Hello. I've had the privilege and pleasure of chairing the Appleseed Grant Committee for many years. And it's just really a wonderful opportunity to see the excellence, the educational excellence and creativity and passion of our district staff and teachers. The ideas they come up with are so creative, and it's really a pleasure to have this opportunity to read them and to lead the volunteers that make the awards. This year, we were able to award 8 Appleseed grants to the following teachers. And if you could stand as I read your name, if you're here, please do so. Rachel Stroud, Hosea Elementary. Susan Williams, Early Learning Center. Allison Schewel, Carden Park. Gina Babcock, Lindbergh. Melissa Corey, Rubidoux. Trish Campbell, Oak Grove. Elizabeth Hoskins, Bodie. And Cherise Geisberg, Truman. These grants range from $215 to $4,100, a wide range. They were awarded in the fall, and these teachers and staff have been hard at work putting them to action all school year, so thank you all.
American Families always tried to strive for the volunteerism and encourage that, and so we were excited when they picked out a particular Volunteer of the Year award that they wanted to set aside, and we we donate $500 to the school for a project that the volunteer is going to help pick, and then there's a $100 stipend that goes to the Volunteer of the Year. So if you're a principal of a school, you should be volunteering. Get somebody on there for next year. So anyway, it's been said that our fingerprints don't fade far from the lives that we've touched, and perhaps nobody knows it better than all of you. You also know the extraordinary amount of support it takes to educate each child for success. And the St. Joe School District receives a tremendous support from the volunteers throughout the year who give their time and talents to help the students succeed. So tonight, we'd like to recognize just one of those volunteers as the American Family Insurance Volunteer of the Year. Please join me in congratulating this year's winner. It's Rhonda Stratton. Rhonda couldn't be here at the last minute, so her daughter, give Kelly Cody some love for us back here to take home to Rhonda. So Rhonda Stratton is a volunteer in the library at Hyde Elementary. She works full-time overnight for the USPS and comes in after her shift to volunteer at the school. She helped create a comfortable and welcoming environment for the students before the school even began. Her help was crucial to the success of the library book fair this year. She always has a smile on her face, loves interacting with the students and being in the library. While this is Rhonda's first year volunteering at Hyde, she's quickly become indispensable, and we're so thankful and in all that she does for Hyde Elementary. So thank you very much. Tell Mom we love her.
Thank you, Rod. Thank you, Bobby. On to our Support Person of the Year that's once again sponsored by Hy-Vee. School support staff include a variety of staff members who provide instructional support as well as support to students in our schools. They can foster positive, trusting relationships with students and improve the school climate by encouraging parent and family involvement in education. Again, Hy-Vee returns this year as our proud supporter of the Support Person of the Year. Hy-Vee is known as a company known for its quality, variety, value, and superior customer service. Its slogan, "A helpful smile in every aisle," expresses the foundation of the company's operating philosophy. Rod Dolph, manager of Hy-Vee, said this: "Thank you for allowing us to be a part of this event. We are proud to support the St. Joseph School District teachers, staff, and students. Partnerships like this are vital to the success of our district and this community." As I read a summary for each candidate or each finalist, would you please stand as I read your name? First is Melissa Corey. Melissa is a library media specialist at Rubidoux Middle School. During Melissa's tenure at Rubidoux, she has shown a love of books, technological expertise, and a desire to build positive, supportive relationships with students and staff. Working with students who often face poverty has been a goal to build equity in her collection of books and programs. Her biggest equity-building activity is Novel Nation Book Fair, which is a term coined for the 100% free fair. Often it is the first time a student has been able to get anything from a book fair. As of this spring, Melissa has given away almost 5,000 books to this community in approximately 2 years. Literacy and equity go hand in hand at Rubidoux. Melissa said as she thinks of her role as a librarian, she thinks of the words of author Jason Reynolds, who asked in his book, "How are you going to change this world?" Melissa's response is one book at a time. Thank you, Melissa. Carol Stevenson. Carol is the nurse at Benton High School. Carol provides professional health support to Benton students during every minute of every day. She provides expert treatment to student illnesses and injuries in a caring, reassuring, and upbeat manner. She has also performed admirably during countless medical emergencies in the building, stabilizing her patients and providing life-saving care while waiting for EMS personnel to arrive. Carol also provides quality training and expertise to teachers, administrators, and support personnel on emergency medical procedures and routine student health matters during professional development days and on other occasions when appropriate. Carol's contribution to Benton High School and St. Joseph Schools impact the well-being of students and staff to such a degree that she defines the word indispensable. Thank you, Carol. Our last finalist for the Hy-Vee Support Person of the Year is Rick Weiser. Rick is a Career Services Coordinator at Hilliard Technical Center. Rick has a passion for working with students, and he feels a personal responsibility to give every student at Hilliard the best opportunity for future success. He has revamped the resume mock interviewing curriculum and has worked with industry, with instructors to arrange opportunities for students to visit facilities and observe operations firsthand. Rick has also cultivated more than 124 business and industry contacts to aid students in their employment and secondary goals. Many students have been employed in early placement jobs, and over 200 job shadows have taken place, with more graduates accepting positions with the recommendation and guidance from Rick. He has also taught classes on the creation of resumes, leading to greater than 500 students having a quality tool to aid in employment. Thank you, Rick. All these individuals are outstanding and worthy of the honor. Each will receive a monetary award sponsored by Hy-Vee. Let's give one more round of applause for all three. Ladies and gentlemen, would you join me in congratulating the 2023-2024 St. Joseph School District Support Person of the Year, Rick Weiser. I'd now like to invite to the podium Todd Meyerhofer to present the Suzanne and Walter Meyerhofer Jr. Memorial Innovator of the Year Award, which has been sponsored since its existence and creation by the Meyerhofer family, which goes back, I believe, to the creation of the foundation itself. So 30 years. So the Meyerhofer family, their generosity, continues to be stellar. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I was led to believe there'd be no math involved in this evening. First, I always do this when I come up and present, but I think it's so important. Greg, thank you. Your words absolutely epitomize my experience as a product of the St. Joseph School District. The teachers that I had through K through 12 really shaped and formed who I am today, and the same I know goes to the students that are currently enrolled in the district and what you all do every day. And I think it's extremely important. You know, I've been coming to this for 23 years, and I look around the room and I continue to see more leaders. We have the city council present, the university staff, chamber, Mosaic, and other community leaders. And these folks that are in this room tonight and others in this community support you. And they support everything that you are doing in our community, and I don't think you can ever hear it enough. And it's not to mean anything coming from me, but I just don't know that you all can ever hear a thank you for what you all do in this community. As Pastor said, we are in a crazy time, and things will get better. But thank you all very much for all the hard work and the dedication. And I do believe that God made a teacher, because those words are extremely appropriate. So thank you for giving me the opportunity just to say those few words. So the Meyerhofer Innovator of the Year Award has been given since 1994, and that was created in memory of both my grandmother and grandfather, Suzanne and Walter Meyerhofer. And the purpose of this award is to encourage teachers to be creative, offer true innovative techniques in their classroom. The award is given to a teacher or a group of teachers who demonstrate a method, procedure, plan, or teaching tool which improve the delivery of instruction to students in the school district. And ladies and gentlemen, this individual that is going to be announced here in just a second absolutely fits this to a T. And that individual is sitting in the center table here, and that is David Wing. So Dave, you can keep standing because you're going to come up here in a second, but I need to read this because I think this is awesome what you're doing. So Dave is a counselor at Rubidoux Middle School. He attended a workshop to focus on pet therapy, which sparked a desire to integrate his two passions, education and dogs. Max is here. So Max is a Newfie Poo, and I would have thought a Newfie Poo would be about the size of my mini poodles, but I am wrong. Let's see. Max is a Newfie Poo, which is a mix between a standard poodle, I should have read on, and a Newfoundland, and possesses of breeds well-known qualities such as being calm and mellow, making him an effective facilitator in building relationships. Dave's program, To the Maxers, provides students struggling with classroom behavior and an outlet to learn patience, control, and ability to solve problems. Studies have shown that therapy dogs can improve behaviors and foster positive relationships. Max is currently participating in a new program called Maximized. Your Reading, which seeks to establish a comfortable and supportive environment for students to read aloud and achieve academic success. Max has completed 5 rounds of training sessions and is continuously working on perfecting his therapy dog skills. The metaphors that arise from Max's accomplishments are rich and powerful, highlighting the resilience and determination needed to overcome life's challenges. For instance, how do we navigate the dark tunnels in our lives and emerge into the light? Max's success offers a valuable reminder that with patience, practice, and determination, we can accomplish great things. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the Suzanne and Walter Meyerhofer Innovator of the Year Award, David Wing and Max.
Okay, before we move on to the Teacher of the Year phase of the evening, I want to embarrass Lori Zillner. Where's Lori? Oh, there she is. Okay. So Lori has served as the Foundation's Executive Director for many years. She was a counselor for the district and agreed to assume this responsibility after she'd retired. And the reason why this event, Appleseed, and other activities that the foundation engages in throughout the year that a lot of people don't see is because Lori does such a nice job. She's got a huge heart, and we're going to miss her, and we'll embarrass her and make a spectacle of her probably at another event this summer. So get ready for that, Lori. But anyway, she's owed a lot, but all we can do at a minimum is give her a round of applause for what she's done. And I will echo Todd's comments in tribute to our speaker, Mr. Hatton. My boys are in the school district, and if I talk too long, I'll get emotional. I'm already doing it. So thank you to this group. They've had a very good experience. They've exceeded our expectations as a family. My mother and father were teachers. So anyway, So, on to Teacher of the Year. Hilliard is a proud supporter of the Teacher of the Year, founded in 1907 by Newton S. Hilliard. His vision from the day he arrived in St. Joseph in 1981, that's probably wrong, was beyond those of the common man. His inventiveness inspired those around him, while his genius formulated a company that would soon become the cornerstone of the maintenance industry. For Hilliard, the founder, growth was inevitable. Quality was the strengthening asset, and promotion was the essential key to success. People, employees in particular, were the keys to longevity. Denise Peters, our current and reigning Teacher of the Year, will come forward and help with this presentation. I want to recognize her one last time, Denise Peters. So the way this works, I'll read the three finalists' names, we'll play a video, I'll read a little bit of their biography, and then Denise and I will announce the winner. Our first finalist for the 2023-2024 St. Joseph School District Teacher of the Year is Tricia Campbell.
My philosophy is that every child can learn and should learn. In our house, we don't say you've got to get up and go to school. It's you get to get up and go to school, because so many places around the world, children don't get to do that. And I carry that over into my teaching, and every child can learn and every child should learn. Try to provide lots of opportunities for my students to learn in a way that will engage them and apply to them, so that they'll be excited and can use their learning in everyday life. My neighbor growing up was a teacher, and she had told me before, Tricia, you should be a teacher. You need to teach. I blew her off. I know, I don't want to teach. And as my aunt said, when I told her that I was going to teach, she said, you don't want to make money? And so I fought it, but my senior year in high school, I thought, well, let me see about this cadet teaching. I get to leave school. I don't have to stay all day. It's an excuse to drive the car, and my parents didn't allow me to at that point. So I took the opportunity, and I fell in love with teaching. I did my cadet teaching in a kindergarten classroom, and it was so much fun. But I still didn't think I wanted to teach. So I started college as a business major, and I realized pretty quickly that it wasn't satisfying me. I wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to have an impact. I went into teaching, and I knew that that's what I was supposed to do, because it just fit, and it felt good, and it made me happy. The greatest challenge I feel students are facing is being bombarded from every direction with so many influences, and suicidal ideation, mental health crisis, they're so big, and it's hard for our children to be able to understand and fight through that, and knowing how to handle the dark times in their life. I try to model for my students how to handle those challenges when life really sticks it to you. You know, what are you going to do? How are you going to respond? And I try to model that. I let my students know when I'm having a bad day and how I handle that, because every day is not a good day, and things happen in life. What's unique about my style of teaching is that I create the hands-on opportunities. I don't just have the students learning the paper and pencil, but also how things apply to everyday life. I like to tell stories. A lot of my teaching comes through my stories that I tell, and the kids remember those. And they'll think back and say, oh yeah, I remember when you told us a story about this, and that was about Main Idea. And so they can remember based on the stories. My greatest aha moment was many years ago when I was first getting started. And I had a student, and he was struggling. This was 6th grade, and he was having a hard time with so much in school, and he hadn't struggled before. Mom and I were working together very closely, working with the child, working with each other, trying to help him and give him the resources that he needed and figure out what was going on. Well, nothing was working. And so Mom and I talked, and Come to find out that the child was internally distracted because of ADD. And so through that time, what I really learned was the importance of working with the parents. We work as a team and we're there for each other. We're there to support each other. I think a lot of times it's like the parents are against the teachers and the parents think that the teachers are against them, but really we're a team. And our goal is to help the children become the best version of themselves that they can be. And it's an honor to do that. I had a student and she was very upset and she needed consoled. So I asked her to step out in the hallway and I started a video that I already had ready. We were learning about the Panama Canal. It was a YouTube video and I had previewed it. And so I put it up and went out, stood in the doorway so I could watch my class and be with my students. And all of a sudden I hear, "I'm a man, not a dish." What in the world? And I don't hear dish. What I heard was a different word that started with a B. And so I take off running like a track star, jumping over the hurdles where the chairs and the desk and the kids running as fast as I could. Well, the kids weren't paying any attention to the commercial at this point. They were laughing at me as I was falling over. I get to the computer. It was a soap commercial. It wasn't anything bad, but it startled me.
Tricia is a 5th grade teacher at Oak Grove Elementary. She believes that teaching is hard and exciting. Teaching is ever-changing and continual. Teaching is draining and reinvigorating. Teaching is a calling, and it is Tricia's calling. One of the ways she has students learn is to teach new concepts to each other. She will work with students until they are an expert on the topic and then give them an opportunity to teach the concept to others. Natalie Arnold, principal at Oak Grove, said that Tricia is the kind and growth-minded teacher who strengthens the teaching profession and students far beyond the walls of her classroom. She's very motivational and inspiring, not only for her students, but for her colleagues as well. Tricia has the natural magic that cannot be taught in the field of teaching. She makes learning meaningful and fun. Her students adore her. Our next round of applause. Our next finalist for Teacher of the Year is Doug Snyder. I'll read his summary. Doug is a social studies teacher at Ruby Doo Middle School. Doug feels that a teacher walks a fine line with their personal beliefs and ideas in public education. He believes that it is his responsibility to maintain professionalism, yet to also be transparent for his students and their caregivers. Doug believes we live in a diverse and changing society, which makes inclusivity and acceptance the key to a safe and productive learning environment. His goal as a teacher and as a person is to teach others how to make decisions and solve problems without bias and judgment. Learning takes place when rational decisions are made from evidence and data to support one's thinking. Doug's favorite unit is teaching the formation of a nation. He feels he excels at teaching the beginning of this nation, positive and negative, from the Declaration of Independence to the ratification of the Bill of Rights in 1791. His personal favorite is when students rewrite the preamble of the United States Constitution to fit today's need in our changing society. Please congratulate Doug Snyder.
When talking about students, I try my best to be the student's teacher first. I want to, and I encourage an inclusive classroom, one that accepts all socioeconomic levels, cognitive levels, different behaviors. All students are included. That means a lot to me. Actually, here at Noyes Elementary, I remember looking in the encyclopedias, and I was infatuated with Lake Texcoco and Tenochtitlan, that is the Aztec capital. They were located in Mexico, and I was just obsessed with their pyramids, with the city built around a lake. Of course, the pyramids in Egypt. And then that continued, conversations with my father about World War II, Pearl Harbor, My father was a veteran. He was in the Navy, and he was quite knowledgeable of world and American history, and I just always enjoyed it. Getting out of high school, graduating from Central in '99, I got in the workforce, did some other things. I was going to be a business major at Missouri Western. 2008, 2009. It was a hard time for me. My family and my wife, my father had passed. I'd been laid off from 2 different jobs due to a poor economy. And my wife was actually pregnant with our first child, Katie. And I had an opportunity to go back to college, Missouri Western. There's a program called Workers in Action through the Missouri Career Center. I had a second lease on life. I took full advantage of it. I owe a special thank you to all my friends and family, but especially my wife, Misty. I couldn't have done it without you, and I thank you every day. So I wouldn't be here without you, hon. You will hear singing, a lot of singing. You will hear rapping, anywhere from Boogity Boogity Bop, Mr. Snyder's Ready to Pop, and must be a clone on this microphone, and just getting kids engaged. I feel that if they are looking at me and making fun of me, they won't make fun of each other. It's kind of a show. When I get up there, I have to sell American history. It's my job to sell social studies, and when kids come in with the idea of I don't like history, I'm going to change their mind. And if it's not all, it's most. The kids call me Peter Griffin. The first student that called me that about 5 or 6 years ago, I went home fuming mad. And then I was like, you know what? Once again, kids are making fun of me, not themselves. I can take it. Peter Griffin, I don't know if he's school appropriate at all times, but he's funny. So I just rolled with it, and just from class to class, the kids started calling me Peter Griffin. I don't mind it anymore. Last Christmas, a student brought me the Christmas ornament of Peter Griffin. And so I showed it to each class. It was just a little $5 ornament. Within 1 or 2 days, it disappeared. And I'm looking around, I'm like, okay, that's odd, whatever. Well, then I noticed something in the middle of my classroom hanging. And I get up real close, and someone had stolen it, painted a red beard on it like mine, and hung it from the ceiling. And to this day, I do not know who had hung that Peter Griffin ornament up. But it's not Peter Griffin, of course, it's Mr. Snyder. So that's probably one of the funniest moments I've ever had in my teaching career. In regard to what are some of the biggest challenges you face in the classroom myself, I've actually sat down, I wanted to type this out because I thought it through thoroughly. It took me a few days to come up with this. Through the years, I have discovered that the history of our nation is interpreted very differently based on your point of view, your environment, and your upbringing. Students enter the classroom with many preconceived notions, and bias is reflected currently in our nation. A few students come with no prior knowledge or interest in the subject at all. My goal as a teacher and as a person is to teach others to make decisions and solve problems without bias and judgment. Learning takes place when rational decisions are made from evidence and data to support one's thinking. In the end, through the positives and negatives, everyone has contributed to the history of our great nation, past and present. We study the past by learning from our mistakes, which leads to us not only knowing better, but us doing better.
Congratulations, Doug. Our third and final finalist is Jessica Timmons. Jessica is a 5th grade teacher at Hosea Elementary. Jessica believes that great teachers don't want to only teach content, they want to help the world become a better place. Jessica is passionate about building and maintaining relationships with parents and students and staff. She asks students about their life outside of school and what they're interested in, and then tries to cultivate and grow that interest through daily lessons. Jessica believes that the best teachers are the ones that let students lead their own learning and each year add to lesson plans. Justin McCarthy, principal at Hosea, said that when Jessica walked into Hosea, she immediately changed it for the better. She lets her students know daily how much she values them, and she always talks to them and treats them as equals. Jessica Timmons.
I feel as though we all are trying to work towards a common goal. And so it's important to me that my students understand that we have a job to do, and this is something that we all need to work towards together. So if one student is not doing well or one student needs extra assistance, it's important that they will help each other and work together to collaborate and accomplish those goals. Same thing goes for parents, and I try to involve the parents as much as I can in our classrooms and keep them updated on what we're doing, make sure that they feel like they're a part of the team as well. I tell people all the time that we're all in the same ship, and if one person feels like they're drowning, then we need to help that person and lift them up, because it's important that we all stay afloat together. When I think about why I became a teacher, a lot of it has to do with the fact that I had great teachers growing up. My grandmother was my principal for most of my life, and I watched her make such a difference and an impact in people's lives. And so that's a huge part of it, but I also had very wonderful teachers when I was growing up. They would see that I academically may have understood a concept quickly and they'd challenge me. Or they would see that I struggled with something in my personal life and I would come to school and maybe not be in the best mood, and they would find somebody to support me. And that happened all the way from preschool through high school, even in college. And I was inspired by those people, and I wanted to be in the same position. I've always felt like education is where my heart is, and so when I think about other teachers and how they've impacted my life, I want to be that same person for other people. One thing that makes my style of teaching unique is that I will differentiate every standard that I have to in order to engage my students. So if I have a student that is really in love with baseball, and that is something that makes them happy and it makes them passionate and they love learning about it, I implement it in my classroom. But at the same time, if another student doesn't like baseball, within the same class, I will even give them a different article as long as it's hitting the same standards. And so I use as many engagement strategies as I can in my classroom to get kids involved in maybe the reading or the writing that we're doing, and I give them some choice. They don't realize that I'm actually teaching to a standard. They think I'm just pulling out things that they really enjoy, and so when I do that, it helps to get the students to interact with the content more, and then they don't really always understand that they're learning what I need them to learn. They think they're just choosing what it is that they want to learn. One of the biggest challenges I feel teachers are facing right now is we have the critical teacher shortage that impacts all of us. And it's very scary sometimes as a teacher to think that we may not have coverage for a class. And I know many teachers, including myself, who may not take a day off that we need to take really for ourselves because we know how shorthanded we are. And so that really impacts a lot of people, and my hope for the future is that we can continue to pull people into our district and to take that pressure of not having coverage away, just so that we can make this an attractive place. And I think that we have very much so within the last few years. I love sports. It's one of the things that my kids learn about me very quickly. And so one year I decided I had some boys who were playing on a traveling basketball team, and they loved it. And there was very few of them that played at recess. And so they needed an extra person to help them out. And so I am known to play at recess with my kids. One kid, at one point, I was wearing sandals that day. I forgot to change into my tennis shoes for recess. and he crossed over me, and I just remember at one point my sandal got caught on the pavement, snapped. I didn't completely fall, but I stumbled pretty good, and my sandal broke. And for the rest of the time that I was in that building, and that student was in the building with me, his favorite story was to tell people about how he broke his teacher's ankles in 4th grade. And I'm sure he's taken that story on to high school where he is now. But all of the kids, if I maybe even said like, oh, you know, we all make mistakes, they'd say, yeah, just like when you broke your flip-flop when someone crossed you over. And so it was pretty humorous, and I know he was very proud of himself, probably still is.
Congratulations, Jessica. A couple housekeeping items. All the honorees and finalists, when the evening wraps up after Denise makes the announcement for Teacher of the Year, we welcome you to come forward so pictures can be taken, and encourage everybody to kind of take your time going home, enjoy the room, visit, have fun. Thank you so much for your presence tonight. Thanks for all that you do for our kids in our community. Now for the big announcement. Thanks, Denise.
All right, the St. Joseph Teacher of the Year for 2023-24 is Doug Snyder.
There's even more people here than I thought. So, see a lot of familiar faces, a few I don't know. I might say a few times. You know, first and foremost, I want to say thank you to the Teacher of the Year Committee. And number two, I want to say congratulations again to Mrs. Campbell, Mrs. Timmons. You're excellent teachers in both 5th grade and elementary. We know how important elementary teachers are. It all starts with the ability to read, and I always encourage my kids to tell my kids, if you can read, you can do anything. I am a product of the St. Joseph School District. Noyes, Bodie, and Central. I remember the first day of kindergarten, my mother was working and my dad dropped me off, and that's when they had AM and PM classes. He dropped me off in Mrs. James' class. I looked up at him and I said, "Where are you going?" And he said, "We talked about this. No more Transformers for you. Sorry, bud, until you get home." I'm just going to run through a few names. Before I do that real quick, just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Is anyone petrified of public speaking? Thumbs up if you like public speaking, thumbs down if you don't care for it. It doesn't bother me at all, so we might be here a while. You might go ahead and fill your plate up. It might be a while, I'm kidding. I'm clearly a teacher dork. I have an outline and it's laminated, okay? It's best to come prepared. At the interview with the Teacher of the Year committee, I showed up with a backpack and a drink, and they're like, "Why do you have all this stuff?" And once a parent, always a parent. I just came prepared. So, at Noyes, I had Mrs. James and Mrs. Thorpe for kindergarten and first grade. They were both wonderful women, and they stressed the need to read and to partake in it and enjoy it. Mrs. Thorpe sent me birthday cards until I got to middle school, and I have all of them in a stack, and it just reminds me of how wonderful of a woman she was. Mrs. Monahan, Mrs. DeVore at Bodie, Mrs. Hausman, Mr. Barrett, and Coach Hook at Central High School. They all influenced me greatly. And then, as in the video said, I will take you back to 2008. I had worked manufacturing labor. I had worked machining. I did snow removal in Kansas City. When it snowed, I was going down while everyone else was going to bed. I worked at Wireco, Snorkel International, and in 2007, 2008, I was laid off twice in 1 year. I tried to do the Admiral thing and didn't miss a day of work. I went from one job to the next. But after the second time, life pushed me again, and I decided to push back. And that's what I stress to our kids, is to work hard, to be tenacious, and to not stop. I cherish my job. I love my job. I go in every day knowing that there's much harder things to do, such as third shift and plowing snow and working 12-hour shifts, which there's nothing wrong with any of those. I just always knew I wanted to do something else, and I had that opportunity. And once again, I want to say and give a special thank you to my wife, Misty. This is not possible without you. Whenever people say the better half, you're the better three-quarters. Okay, 2/3. As you can tell, I'm humorous, and that's what I use in the classroom. I try to relate as much as I can, make relevance. Just last week, we were talking about the War of 1812, and we had a 10-minute conversations about sequels to movies. I had them going. We were talking about the Fast and the Furious 22, however many of those there are. And they're never as good. And I had the kids engaged, and they were loving it. And I said, the War of 1812 is like a part 2 to the American Revolution, because it has the British and the United States. And they're like, oh my gosh. I said, I got them. Thank you. Missouri Western. I love this college. I had some great history professors and teachers, Lori Coe, Mr. Freeling, Dr. Daigle, Dr. McClear, and Dr. Tryfon. I received a very well-rounded education from them. But the one that I'll remember forever and has the greatest effect on me, and I know quite a few of you know the name and have had him, and that's Dr. Griart. Dr. Griart, I had you 3 times. And I remember the thesis statement for La Noche Triste. I thought I was hot stuff, and I'd just gotten back to college for a year, and I had straight A's, and I was on top of the world. All I had to write was 5 or 6 sentences. There was more red on that than a Chiefs Super Bowl parade. But the constant conversations, and you always had an open door for me. It was an open door policy. We talked sports, and you had a great influence on me, and I thank you very much, Dr. Griart. You're a great man. I want to say one thing about the St. Joseph School District. Where's Dr. Gabe Edgar at? I don't know you personally, sir, but I will tell you as a teacher and from talking to a lot of people, there's a lot of optimism and we're going in the right direction. And thank you for your efforts. Doing a good job. Thank you. Well, I want to acknowledge my family and friends, but first I want to acknowledge my mother. My mother was a manager of Brittany Village, Village East Towers. She taught me how to be well-rounded, determined, and self-reliant. I always had the best clothes, I ate well, and I had a lot of Transformers. And before this started, I remember I had a rough 4th and 5th and 6th grade. I was so worried that if I did win, I thought there'd be protesters in the back, former teachers at Noyes Elementary, with signs that said, "Is this real?" You've always been a great mother and an even better grandmother to my kids, and thank you. A lot of this is because of you. My father shared his love of history, his humor, and his ability to relate to anyone. My father could walk into any room and talk to any person. I think he's pretty proud. What do you think, Eric? That the Chiefs won 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. While we're on that topic, anybody want to join me? How many Chiefs fans do I have in here? How about them Chiefs? Right, Dave? I watched the Super Bowl with him. Well, and Max. I have 2 older brothers, Eric and Glenn. They're 18 and 12 years older than I am. I had 3 dads growing up. It was wonderful. But I'll say, with the age difference, my 2 brothers always made time for me. If that was in baseball, if that was in sports, if that was just spending time with me, watching Masters of the Universe when I was 5 years old at the theater at the mall. They both were always just great brothers. And Eric, I want to say 2 things to you. Thank you for always having faith in your little brother. You've always been my biggest fan. And number 2, thank you for making fun of me for 42 years, because no middle school student can hurt my feelings. My children, Katie and Evan, my daughter, she's a 7th grader at Rubidoux Middle School. We thought it would be awkward at first, but she's settled in. My son Evan's not here. He's 8, and he would be talking about Mario. He would have followed me up here and talked about Mario the entire time. But I love both my children, and they're actually my main motivation every morning. You know, I have to get up, provide not only for my students at Rubidoux, but my 2 kids specifically. I want to thank everyone that I can't mention at this time. But now I want to talk about the 3 M's. What are the 3 M's you say? Misty, Mom, and Marta. Of course, Misty. She's M number 1. And the order changes. It depends on who I'm with at what time. But right now it's Misty. It's number 1. Mom, thank you again. And Marta Sanson, you have no idea the influence you have had on me the past 10 years. When I was a new teacher, you would say things, and I would listen, but I didn't quite understand, because it's hard being a new teacher, a novice teacher. You're paranoid, you're worried. I'm not made for this. But in time, you take the advice, and you learn just how great some teachers are, and that one's Marta Sanson. Hands down. Thank you. Where are my fellow Badgers at? Thank you to the past and present administrators. I had Precious Kurth, PK. She had a great influence on me. She was a great leader. Mark Wise was my principal for 7 years. David Arnold. And of course, Tanya Sharp, my current principal. The Dream Team. The Dream Team, for years up at Rubidoux, I was the other guy, because I worked with some strong teachers. Melissa Corey, you do great things for Rubidoux. Thank you for all you do. Mark Correll, thank you for the DC trips, for sending hundreds of North End kids to Washington, D.C. Everybody knew how the effort you put into that. And thank you. And of course, Marta Sanson. We did refer to ourselves as the Dream Team. Or they called themselves the Dream Team, and I was the other guy. So, I want to thank all Badger staff, past and present. I want to thank all parents and guardians. I don't want to be up here too much longer. I have final thoughts that I'd like to share with everyone. I just want to say, most importantly, I want to thank my students, past, present, and future. I take great pride in preparing students to become future educated and willing voters, taxpayers, jurors, law-abiding citizens, participants in their community, and to understand our federal republic, not a democracy, federal republic. I'm going to quote my favorite president, the 32nd President FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, that led this nation during one of the hardest times in our history. We cannot always build a future for our youth, but we can always build our youth for the future. Thank you.